about Egypt? I mean, you grew up there, right?
I did,
Yeah.
but I spent 9 years of my childhood, I guess, in Egypt, but they were all split up.
Yeah, yeah.
So I kind of grew up there, but it was kind of divided up too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Is there like something you look forward to when you're there?
Yeah. I mean, I do like you feel the age of the earth, I guess, in a strange way.
What does that mean? I need to know.
Like Cairo is so old. When you're walking down
Okay.
certain
Okay.
streets, you can really feel like this feeling of, oh, there's been people for 3,000 years walking
Yeah.
in this area.
That's so interesting because you definitely don't feel that here because everything's
Yeah.
so. I mean, maybe the correct term, like they like modernized or like I don't know. It's just like they constantly are just like there's construction and they're building on top of buildings on top of
Yeah.
buildings. So I guess you don't feel that here as you do there,
Yeah,
right?
totally. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay, that's so interesting. Cool.
So it kind of also, I don't know, puts life into context a little bit. Like
Yeah.
when you feel like you're a part of some large fabric of time,
Yeah.
I feel,
Yeah.
I don't know, somehow I feel like it's good for your mind a little
I
bit.
think so.
Yeah.
I can see that
Yeah.
for sure. I love that. I know very little about Egypt, and I'm embarrassed to say that.
No, that's okay. I mean, yeah, it's because there's even stuff that's not very well known. Like just south of Cairo, there's a part of the desert that used to be underwater. So
Okay.
there are these like dinosaur whale skeletons that are still left on the sand.
That is so cool.
Yeah,
And it's just there and you see
yeah, now it's
them.
like a national park, so you can
Okay.
go visit it and see these
Okay.
like skeletons.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, which is super cool. And
Oh
that's
my
like a very
God.
like unknown part of Egypt's heritage.
Yeah, because I mean Egypt, you're like, oh, let's go to the pyramids.
Exactly, yeah. Which are they're still awesome too, but yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, not to take away from the
No, no,
pyramids,
yeah.
but go see a fucking whale skeleton, a
Yeah.
dinosaur skeleton.
Totally, yeah.
That's so cool. I love that. Okay, that's
So
so
I
cool.
also like that part of it, that you can it feels like you can be endlessly discovering these interesting things.
I
Yeah.
love that. That's so cool. All right, well, let's get started.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
good.
All right, well, welcome to House of Stone, a podcast where everyone has a story and we get into the nitty-gritty of it all. Today's guest, we have Sara Malika.
Hello, thanks for having me.
No problem. We'll just like talk like we haven't been talking for like 5 minutes. That's okay. My last guest, I started talking about his. This sounds weird, but like we started like chatting like before like the start, and then we ended up getting into like talking about his hygiene routine, which yeah, I found interesting, but I'm just like, and then it ended up being really funny, and I was like, I can't not keep it in. So the beginning of the podcast is just like us talking about soap. I just spit so bad.
Okay. It fit in a way.
But now I want to keep the beginning of this podcast because we talked about Egypt and how there's like whale skeletons in like the dry desert, and
Yeah.
we need to go. Let's all go to Egypt. Well, I'll go to Egypt with
Yes.
you.
I would love that.
If I go to Egypt with you, then we have an excuse to be like, oh, Abby, doesn't know you very well. We can have to stay at like a hotel.
Yeah,
and then, like
exactly.
you can get away from some family members if you need a break. If you need a
Totally.
break. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm very much like an introvert too. So like the idea of like even family members that I haven't seen in like a decade, I'm like, yeah, I want to catch up, but like there's a period of time where I need a break. Like, I don't know, like even like with my boyfriend, we live together. I'm just like, we need a night apart just to like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm a weirdo. But
No, I think that's it. It's when you need to visit family and spend like several weeks straight with them that you're like, oh, but I don't know that we're meant to do this. Yeah.
It's funny because like we used to live with them, or like
Yeah.
at least like I did. I used to live with my parents. It was a long time I lived with my parents, and I just like accepted their annoying little habits and behaviors. But then now that I'm older, I have less of that, and I'm like, I want to keep it. less of that.
Yeah. And there's also that, where they could be like, well, it's at my house, my rules. But then once you haven't had to adhere to those rules for several years, you're like, I don't want to go back.
Oh my God. I can't imagine my parents saying that to me now. Like the reaction they would get from me as a 35-year-old would be outstanding. I would love for that. It would be hilarious. It'd be hilarious. Don't do that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just like tear my father apart and like, yeah. Like I pay my own way now. You don't get to tell me. You don't pay for my cell phone anymore. You don't get to tell me what to do.
Totally.
But that's okay. That's all the joys of growing older.
Exactly.
I don't know. Anyways, I wonder if we asked our parents, like if they talk about like their parents, whether they feel the same, like we need distance type thing.
Totally.
I don't know.
Because I know that my mother and my grandmother love each other, but that they absolutely neither of them would want to cohabitate anymore.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So your mother would be a hypocrite if she like judged you for being like, yeah, you know what, we need some space.
Let's not live together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do they live close to each other in Cairo, you said?
It would be 20 minutes without traffic, but I guess with Cairo traffic, it can turn into 45 minutes, an hour kind of thing.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. My parents, my grandmother has passed away. It's been like a decade. But my mother and my grandmother lived about 20 minutes apart, and that was the right distance for them, I think.
Totally.
There was no traffic because they lived in rural Quebec, but there was like... And there was a structure in place. Oh, call before I come over and stuff like that. Because, I don't know, if I stop by, you're not home. It's 20 minutes there and then 20 minutes back, So that's a good distance,
Yeah,
I
think that would be the ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I have a little introduction for you, just in case some of our listeners don't know who you are.
Sure.
I think a lot of them do. I do have a lot of like comedians that listen in. But Sara Malika is a comedian, improv artist, sketch performer, and producer. Amazing producer. She's been part of more festivals than I have time to mention, to be honest, including most recently the Toronto Sketchfest, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Some of the most notable credits was with her show, They Go Low, We Go Laugh, which has been part of the Off-Jfl Zoofest lineup, I think 3 times. Yeah, that's amazing. Which I think is more than a lot of shows that has been part of the festival. She makes a big priority to create spaces for artists of color, femme, and other minority groups. She is now the executive director, is that what you want to call yourself, of Ladyfest, an all-femme comedy festival. I forgot the title that you wanted for the
normally I say festival director, but executive director is maybe going to be the new direction I go in.
Maybe. We just pick titles for ourselves. Why not? Festival director sounds really good. I feel like in terms of like producing, I think festival director. Executive director sounds like not-for-profit organization.
Yeah.
Route.
It also sounds like I'm less of the people, I guess, because I'm an exec.
That's true. Yeah, Let's not go that route.
Grounded. No.
So the Ladyfest is an all-femme comedy festival that will be happening this September or Labor Day weekend starting around. When I see her on stage, and I am just like in awe with her grace and talent. So I'm so happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, no problem. I've been wanting to have you on for a long time. I think we tried to schedule this like in the fall, and then life got in the way. In the fall, it was in my home studio, so this is a step up. So maybe it's good. Here. Maybe we that we waited a little bit. I wanted to start with talking about They Go Low, We Go Laugh. Just tell us about it, people that don't know about it.
Yeah, it was. I started in improv in Montreal. And I was already noticing that there weren't very many people of color involved. Yeah. So I started by producing an improv show first. Okay. But then as I was getting more and more into comedy, I was noticing that there were very few women like me. Yeah. And that often I'd hear, well, it's just because they're just not funny. was the response.
You've heard this.
Yeah.
You've heard this. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay.
And I was like, I don't think that's it. I think it's because a lot of traditional comedy spaces are so abrasive to women in general, and then there's like the other layer of when you're of color, that women don't even want to get involved because they're like, I don't need to be in this abrasive place. So that inspired me to create a show where women of color can try comedy for the first time also, to kind of give them that entry point into like, oh, this is what it would be like to do it, and to just build some confidence so that if they do want to go into those traditional comedy spaces, that they have some confidence in their material.
That's so amazing. And you've definitely succeeded at doing that. Like, there's been so many comedian artists, storytellers that have come out of They Go Low, They Go Laugh, and they've gone on to doing huge festivals, right? So it's been really incredible to see, and I just can't believe someone said that to you. Oh, they're just not that funny. That's just so I shouldn't be surprised because, like, I mean, there definitely was the narrative of like, oh, women are not just that funny. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised that it just went one step further. That's such a bummer. And so when did it all start? So it started as an improv show. What year did it start?
I was producing an improv show called Color Outside the Lines. Started in 2017. Yeah. And then I started They Go Low, We Go Laugh in 2019, actually. Okay. But then, of course, we had the pandemic.
The pandemic, the panda.
So, yeah. And then after, when spaces were opening up again, I realized They Go Low, We Go Laugh was what like made me more passionate than the improv show.
Yeah, absolutely. So you started in the arts as an improv performer?
Yes.
Okay. What inspired you to get into improv?
There were two things. The first thing was I was friends with a lot of theater kids in school.
Okay. Were you part of like plays or anything?
I was always kind of on the, what's the word? But like
adjacent to it? Were you like making the costumes or doing like makeup
or painting the set?
Oh my God, set design. Oh, I can totally relate to that.
Because I wanted to hang out with them, but I like really couldn't see myself on stage at that time. It was and then B, I went to the school where they were like putting on kind of bizarre plays for high school students sometimes. Like they put on Three Penny Opera.
What is that?
It's this.
Should I know?
No, you don't need to know at all. No. I only know because they put it on there. It's this like kind of alt German play from like the 1920s. And the only roles are, and then I remember the theater teacher was like, oh, you should audition because then you could be in the show with your friends. Yeah. And I remember having to tell them, oh, my parents wouldn't want me to play a sex worker because that was the main role for girls.
Imagine having to tell a high school teacher that. Just like, just so you know, this maybe isn't the greatest move for me.
Yeah. I was like, they're the ones who have to drive me back and forth to rehearsals and they won't. And the theater teacher was like, oh, it's okay, you could just play like an unhoused person because that was the other role.
Yikes.
And I was like, that's okay.
So you decided to step back from being on stage or like not move forward with potentially being on stage.
Yeah, but then the theater teachers, because I was always like around, they were like, oh, we're starting this improv club. Okay. And I was like, okay, I feel like I could do that. It still felt theater adjacent. Okay. So I was like, okay, there feels like room for me here. Yeah. So that was how I first got into it.
Okay. So it's been a few years. Yeah. Many years.
But I still took a big pause. And then after university, you know, when you're like, oh, how do people make friends as grown-ups?
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. Can we like talk about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
It is like, I mean, the only friends that I really have are like from comedy. I feel like this is like, there was a big period of time where like, I had my friends from like, you know, high school, but then like a lot of them just trickled away, you know. A lot of them have families and like that's just not my vibe. And it was just coincidentally, I didn't really think about it until like now I'm just like, oh, all my friends are like comedy adjacent or stand-up comedians.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was just like coincidence that I realized that. But yeah, like it's hard to make friends as an adult. Yeah. Especially if you like move to a new city or anything like that.
That was it, because I'd only been in Montreal for 2 years. So, and I got into the improv classes in like 2 years, just after 2 years of being here. So there was this feeling of, oh, I'm new in this city and I'm finding it hard to get to know people through school.
Okay. So you came to Montreal for school?
Yeah, it was a mix of, I came for school, but my dad was also a diplomat.
Oh.
And he was posted here at that time.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay, amazing.
And then after he had done his like time here, the government took him back to Egypt. But I was 22, and I was like, I'm gonna stay.
You're gonna stay.
Yeah.
So did you come with him? And like when he was like posted here, or like moved, like got a job here, and like you just at the same time, you're like, I'm just gonna go to school here at the same time.
Yeah, I was already I got it into my head. I am still a history teacher to this day.
Yeah.
And I got it in my head at like 15 that's what I was gonna do.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. I mean, you succeeded at that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like if I was chasing the career that I wanted at 16, you would not see me on this camera right now. It was just like I was all over the place, but that's good for you.
I know. I'm still astounded by it now that I was like, oh, I really committed to this.
I mean, it's like it's great.
Totally,
I'm always. I mean, like I always sidetrack in this like recording. I'm sorry about that. I'm always amazed of how teachers just like. I don't know how to like describe it. Like I'm amazed by teachers for many reasons. And one of the reasons is they're so confident about like guiding the youth, and teaching like I would be riddled with anxiety. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm teaching them the wrong thing. Maybe I'm teaching like but obviously you go through schooling to like know how to do that.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is a mix of, like if you're it's like kind of being in a room with like 30 baby deer who barely know how to walk. So part of you is like, I'm smarter than them.
Fair enough.
But you do also, I definitely have taken time to be like, oh, I don't want to say anything that's going to have some sort of lasting, because we do have those teachers that we remember because they said something to us that like we have never been able to shake off. So I do feel conscious of what I say to them.
As you should.
That
would be the right thing to do. I'm surprised how how little like some of my teachers thought about that. Like, I mean, it's just like the ones that like didn't have like a barrier or a filter, or they were like had an attitude issue and maybe should have like retired or quit like decades before they taught me. I'm always like shocked that they weren't aware of all of that. One of like the funniest thing that's like stuck with me with like a teacher said was like, it was about this time of year like in school where like a teacher like came into class and was like, listen, we all collectively have to learn how to use more deodorant because it fucking stinks in here. Yeah. That stuck with my that's like my Roman Empire, just like so like I remember that so vividly.
Yeah. I feel like that's an annual conversation that comes up for teachers. I think when kids are going through puberty, I don't know, there's just like crazy smells coming out of their bodies.
It's dangerous.
Yeah.
It's dangerous. God bless you, teachers.
I know, truly.
So where was I with that? You started like doing improv. So you after you finished. Was it after university that you were?
Yeah, so I'd already seen that McGill had this like master's in teaching program.
Okay.
And then when my dad was posted here, I was like, oh, perfect. Now it's like much easier to go to McGill than it would have been. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it would have been great if like my parents lived in Montreal and just like yay, I get to go to school.
Yeah.
And not have to pay rent or as much
yeah.
rent or whatever.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. So you started doing improv here. And when did that move on to doing, like, exploring more of the arts? Like, you do sketch now, you've done stand-up, and obviously, like we said, like, you produce these shows. Like, when did it start to expand?
Yeah, I think there were different people involved. A lot of who helped found the first Ladyfest, actually.
Okay, yeah.
There was a performer here named Sara M, who
Mm-hmm.
she was doing improv, but she was also running this solo character show.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that I sort of dabbled in sketch because she really encouraged me.
Okay. Okay.
And then there was another person who'd founded Ladyfest named Erin Hall, who she was running a sketch show called the Sketch Republic, and she also really encouraged me to try sketch.
Okay.
And it was both of them also who got me into Ladyfest in the first place.
Okay. Okay.
So
amazing.
I felt those people around me being like, hey, why don't you try? Like, there's no harm in trying.
Yeah.
Is what sort of helped me be like, oh, like, I didn't perceive myself as being able to do this, but I could try.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And obviously you've been doing sketch for a minute now. What is your process with, like, your sketches? Like, I'm so at awe at like sketch performers, and I've done a little, like a tiny little bit of it, but it just seems like I like stand up because, like, one, like, I don't know, it's just different. Obviously, it's just different. Like, I'm writing bits and, like, my material, and I test it on stage at an open mic. With, like, sketch, like, you're writing a script, right? And then you're practicing, and then, like, and I just, like, I want to know the process behind it all, really.
Yeah. It's interesting. You'll see something that you maybe observe to be funny. Yeah. But with sketch, you're trying to map it on to almost a different circumstance that makes it even funnier.
Yeah.
I wrote a sketch about Greta Thunberg trying to enlist Malala Yousafzai into, like, a Supergirl group, but she's enlisting her in the bathroom.
That's hilarious. That's pretty good.
Yeah, because I was just thinking about how, like, in a lot of movies, or even, whether it's, like, Queer Eye, or even with wedding proposals, people are putting somebody on the spot suddenly.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's often, like, a really huge conversation, but there's cameras. Yeah. And so in the sketch, obviously, there's cameras that suddenly appear, too. Yeah. Yeah, so then I was, like, just thinking on that premise of putting people on the spot, of, like, what a bizarre thing that is that
It is a weird thing, especially, like, in reality TV, that we've come accustomed to, just, like, it's time to talk about this in front of a bunch of people.
Yeah, and on this Queer Eye, it's crazy sometimes.
Probably should be some sort of mental health professional involved, but there isn't.
Yeah.
But yet here we are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hopefully they have some sort of professional involved. I don't know I don't know things about the production. I don't know. It's wild. And then, like, I just eat it up.
Yeah.
I will watch all of it.
Totally. Yeah, I know. Me too. I'm like, I definitely wouldn't want to be in this person's situation, but I can't look away.
Yeah, I can't look away, and I need to know the end results, and hopefully they got better and not worse.
Yeah, I know.
So you come up with these ideas just from, like, you know, living your life. That's what I'm getting. Yeah.
But it helps too. I think I do, like, collaborative comedy a bit more than the solo comedy. Yeah, yeah. But it takes you time because some people are coming into sketch. They might have been more theater people themselves. Yeah. Or some people were stand-ups and then coming into sketch. And I think I work more with Missine and Goulet and Portia. Yeah. And they're all coming from, like, they're all strong joke writers. Yeah. And I find that, like, the more enjoyable way to write sketch.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it helps when the person has a background of just being funny, because, like, I mean, I guess not all sketches have to be funny, do they? No, right?
No, not necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah, but, like, I mean, maybe that's just, like, what the goal is to like make the audience laugh, right?
Yeah.
So it helps that like you're collaborating with other people that do have that like, I mean, it does take like a comedic brain, right?
Totally, yeah. I think also maybe I'm already kind of good at the building the arc of the sketch or justifying why we're in this weird world.
Yeah.
So then it helps me more to work with joke writers because then we're complimenting each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like you mentioned, collaborating for sure with other artists. I actually took a screenwriting class or script writing class the past like 8 weeks at Concordia, just because I want to learn how to like technically write a script, because I would love to write more sketches, because like I grew up like watching like a lot of comedians like dabble in sketch, like Nick Kroll had a sketch show, and just like a lot of comedians they just had it for a period of time, like sketch shows, and or you know, now like there's stuff on YouTube and stuff like sketches, and for the newer comedians, and I just didn't know where to start. You know, just because even if I like downloaded like, you know, a sketch, like a script writing program, like I don't know what it's supposed to look like technically. So so that I really like the collaboration. What I've learning in the class, like we're doing these exercises and we're writing these like short scripts, and we're like doing a read of them in class, and getting feedback. And I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise to me that I like feedback from other people, because I'm a comedian. I get on stage and I was like, I want instant feedback. But it's just been really nice to collaborate with and like get feedback on in that way. Where like stand-up comedy can feel very solo. And maybe it's not like that for a lot of people. And I do like pitch my jokes to like friends, and but it's a lot of the time it's just me writing, going on stage, seeing if something work, and then just like evaluating it myself.
Yeah. Because I feel like it's both normal if somebody like helps you write a tag or something like that for your joke, but at the same time, part of you feels like you're cheating in some way in stand-up. Like if people are like, that joke was so good, but you know somebody helped you with the...
Oh, absolutely. I mean, sometimes like the way I get... That's happened to me many times, and the way I get over it is just like, I went into like pitching this joke to someone for help, and they would never write this tag in their joke, because because my jokes are very autobiographical. So I'm like, you're not going to talk about how like being a woman with hearing loss because you're my boyfriend, and you're just, that's not who you are. So you like so I think that's okay too. And I've had like writing sessions with other comedians, and but it is like it's hard, because sometimes I'm like, I feel bad like actually moving forward with this like tag.
Versus in sketch there's more of an assumption that different people have pitched in. Absolutely.
So do you and the people you're doing sketches with mostly now, do you have like a routine? Like, do you guys like Zoom once in a while and like just like write together, or like what's your process with them?
I think so far it has been this thing of applying to festivals and then seeing if we get in, and then that
and then writing
helps give us a deadline. I think it is hard with the arts, to figure out how to motivate yourself.
It is.
So in a way, when you have a show coming up where you're like, okay, we have this show, it helps mobilize you.
Oh, it puts a fire under. For sure, 100%.
But before an occasion like that, we'll start by Zooming and writing our scripts just over Zoom first. Which I think is also it's also nice when people are able to work in that way at the beginning.
Absolutely.
But then with sketch, after a while, even with stand-up, you might want to figure out your physicality, where you're going to place yourself on the stage at different points.
Absolutely. So you have to practice together, obviously. Yeah. Were you guys part of the Montreal Sketchfest this year too?
Yeah, we were also,
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Like I said, Toronto, but Montreal just happened. Yeah. How was that?
It was really fun. I feel, Montreal Sketchfest it feels heavy on the fest, which I feel like a lot of festivals forget to do. Like sometimes you go to festivals, but it really feels more like some sort of industry showcase.
Oh, really?
And you're not having a good time at all, but
really,
yeah, where you're like, oh, yeah, so the stakes feel really high, but you're like, but I'm just trying to figure out how to do this still.
Was that what it felt like? Is that what you mean? It felt like that here in Montreal, that it was?
No, in Montreal, I would say it's the opposite. It's more the like, oh, this is a moment for our community to celebrate each other and have a good time, but the stakes don't feel so high. So you feel like you can still experiment or explore.
Okay, good. Yeah. I mean, I like that a lot more. I mean, definitely festivals can feel very like a lot of pressure for sure.
Like you have a big festival coming up.
Yes.
So there's probably that feeling of like, oh, it's cool, I'll be in this place, but the stakes feel high.
I have to be honest, Sarah, I have been like putting it at the back of my mind.
That's totally
trying
fair.
Not to think about it, because like I'm in the midst of just like barely holding on. Like we've talked about it, just like, okay, we feel burnt out and tired. Maybe we could just like do a little bit and like put this on the back burner. And like this festival, Sarah's talking about the festival I'm doing in LA, and this is like this weekend. I have just put it at the back. I'm like, I know I'm going. My ticket there is booked. My hotel is booked. My car is booked. I did that a month and a half ago. The rest I have not thought about.
Yeah.
But I should think about it now. But yeah, it feels, I've just been like, okay, putting this in a lockbox in my brain and only thinking about it when I get on the plane, I think, on Friday. So yeah.
No, I do that too, because then I find it easier to give my full attention to something.
Yeah.
So to be like, okay, I've got it through my work week. Now I'm on the plane and I'm going to this thing, and I can just give it 100% of my attention.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to get through your 9 to 5 and thinking about this other thing.
Yeah. And you have like an intense 9 to 5, so I totally get that.
Yeah.
Like, and I so admire people like you that have like this really good, like intense like day job, and then you're able to like fit in your other priorities, you know, your other artistic work and succeed at it. And I don't feel like I feel like I'm just getting by with everything. You know what I mean? Like, I guess I'm succeeding at most things, but just like, it's not, you know, I'm going to this festival, but like the rest of the time I'm just like, just holding on, just doing like what I need to do. But anyways, that's fine.
No. I mean, we are in a hard, I feel like, with the, you know, as the prices, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I think it is really hard on the arts. Like,
for sure.
It's the first year in a way where normally when the Montreal Fringe is coming up, for example, I'm thinking like, oh, it'd be so fun to be a part of it. But this year I feel so relieved to not have to worry about selling tickets.
Oh, absolutely.
When people are feeling iffy about spending money.
Yeah, it's been really tough to be an artist, and also like the cost of living. Like I used to be able to, you know, get by with just like a part-time job, and now I have like a couple part-time jobs and different like sources of income. And and then to produce a show and ask people to pay money, like it feels like a lot.
Yeah.
But yet I want to be able to perform, and that's what I love doing the most. And so it's hard to like hit that balance for sure.
Yeah.
It's hard to be, I mean, I feel like there's a reason why there's that term struggling artist, but right now I feel like there's a big emphasis on the struggle.
Totally. Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get through this.
For sure.
And that's why, I mean, like sometimes like I have a show on Wednesday, I'm just like, just pay what you can. Just like, you know, like I don't need to, like I'm not paying anything for the space. Thank goodness for Raquel and Polly Mike and that whole crew. Like they have the space that they use, and they've just been very generous. And so like, because I don't have like a initial fee, I'm just like, yeah, I don't want people paying. Like, just like, if you can give $2, great. I'll give that back to Polly Mike, who's doing so much admin work, but just like, let me perform,
For sure, yeah.
But anyways, yeah. I go on tangents.
No.
So you just did, like we said, you just did Montreal Sketch. And you're saying that like, it's hard to like produce nowadays. I have noticed that like They Go Low, We Go Laugh is on a little bit of a producing hiatus, right?
I think also because it's a women of color show, when there's like big international conflicts, it also, our audience members are they're feeling the ripple effects of that too. Especially like, I'm Egyptian myself, so I kind of attract other Middle Eastern North Africans too. So I was also feeling I think there's a mix though of people wanting to still go out and like laugh sometimes and have a break. But I was just finding it challenging to produce within that context too.
Very, very fair. Very fair. Do you see it like maybe like during Ladyfest it coming back, or do you just think you're just gonna wait a bit and see? I do feel that it was a space that was a really like beautiful, refreshing space, and I met a lot of really interesting like and amazing people through it. So I think, just taking a break for a few months is helping me be like, okay, I can get back into it. I think I was just recognizing that to produce right now, you need to have the energy to hustle a little bit. For sure.
And when I was feeling drained, I was like, I don't know if I can hustle right now. But taking some time to rest kind of gave me that push.
Rest is productive for sure. It's good for you to recognize that. I feel like a lot of us artists don't really do that. We don't take a moment to be like, hey, like, I need to like slow down a little bit in order for it to be like the most successful like thing or project that it can be.
For sure.
So it's completely understandable. I see people, I don't know how some people do it. They just like, they're producing so much and like, and I mean, I definitely am guilty of just not being aware that like, oh, I bit off too much for now. But I have definitely, thankfully, been like, no, I need to cut this out. I need to stop this. I need to, but it's hard to like figure that out.
And I would still say, because I produced online shows in the pandemic. Even I lost my dad 2 years ago, and I started producing, I think, just 3 months after. And that same year, I herniated 3 discs in my back during Ladyfest.
Oh, jeez.
But even after I had surgery on my back, I was back on stage, I think, 3 weeks later.
Sarah.
So even with that, I didn't know my limits either.
So live and learn.
But I was just getting to the point of being like, I think there's been too many ailments now.
Just need to halt.
Totally.
Maybe after a back surgery, like that's a one sign that like maybe I need to take a break.
Totally.
Oh my gosh, that's so brutal. Can I ask how you hurt your back so brutally? Like,
I think it must have. I feel it was a mix of things.
Okay.
I had a phase of outdoor running, so I think that's hard on your back.
It's very.
It did happen the same year that I lost my dad, so I think I was also extremely like stressed that year.
Fair.
And then
imagine like well, my sketch performance is very physical. I do backwards somersaults. Go check Sarah out.
Exactly. Then I would hope that they would.
That's such a bummer. Oh my goodness. But I mean, I'm glad you've found a balance now.
Totally.
And I mean, the stage and show will always be there.
For sure.
That's for sure. How do you feel about the state of women in comedy now? Like, are we getting better? Are like people treating us better? Or like where do you think we stand now?
I do think it's so much better than when I look at the comedy scene now compared to 2019. It's already
absolutely
completely different.
Oh yeah.
Like there's so much more women right now producing and performing in all the different spheres of comedy in Montreal. I think the interesting thing that's happening, I'm gonna compare it this. I feel like women in comedy right now are almost like TikTok in a way, and then the regular comedy scene is almost like the U.S. government.
Oh wow! Okay,
where there's this feeling of I just hear a lot of like I feel like a lot of the shows in Montreal right now that are queer spaces or women-led spaces, there's more of an emphasis on like paying performers in some way, and I feel like I hear ripples of the traditional comedy spaces maybe being frustrated with that, of being like, well, back in my day I wouldn't get paid for a Wednesday night spot or whatever.
Yeah.
So they're feeling this annoyance with this space that's really doing things in kind of a helpful or innovative way.
Yeah, absolutely. There's like a fight back towards like progression or like, growth. A little bit. And yeah, that's a big bummer. And I do agree that like I started in 2017, and when I started comedy there, I am not lying, there was like 5 other female comedians, stand-up comedians. I don't know about the other like, different pockets like sketch or improv. So it was very small. And like I remember like the first like show that I did, it was at the Comedy Nest, and the booker was like, oh, because you're a woman, you'll probably get booked more here on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, which is their open mics, because we want to like, obviously show like more like female comedians. Which I'm like, oh, that's really nice. That was my first sign that like, oh wow, like, so I've heard of like, because before starting stand-up I was a big fan of stand-up, so I've heard before like, oh, it's different for women in comedy, and I was just like, whatever, just like go and do it, like who cares. But like it has been really, the first few years it was like a bit challenging, because I felt not like I was intimidated by like a lot of aspects of it, but because I would be the only woman on the lineup, and it would be a small show, and I felt like an added pressure as well, because I'm like, oh, I don't want to be the only woman and the only woman that like doesn't do well. Where like I feel like, I mean, I know every comedian wants to do well no matter what, but like if I had like a bad set, then I'm just like, oh, but I was like a bad set and I was like the only woman. Like, and so I felt there was that added layer there. And now, it like the scene now, it has grown, like just grown exponentially just in general. Like, but there's so many more women, and which is fantastic. Like, Stand Up St. Henry has an all-femme lineup like once a month, and most of their lineups are just like more femme than anything else, and it's, which is incredible. Where like in 2017 that would have been so hard to get all femme lineup together. It would have been like, okay, we're like paying for a bus from Toronto for like a few people. And I mean, I feel like a lot of independent producers are trying to fight for like, okay, well, we're gonna pay our acts fairly and like move forward with that. And then you still hear ripples of just like, well, it's a Wednesday show, it's just like, well, I mean, it's nice to get paid for at least,
even if it's $5, it just
exactly,
it makes you feel like,
appreciated.
I did get on the metro to get here.
And definitely. But I also definitely, I still do shows like during the week that I don't get paid for, because I also know the producers aren't getting paid that much. You know what I mean? So like, if they, because it's pay what you can or whatever. So like, I'm not gonna like like that's a different scenario because like it's like, oh, this is my friend producing a bi-weekly or weekly show. I know that they're doing all of this admin and all of, because like as a producer, like you know how much work we put into it.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So like if they do spot me or give me $5, great, but like I'm not, like I'm still fine with doing those shows too, because and then also those shows give me the space to like try some new stuff out, like polymic or whatever. I just love polymic so much because like I can go and there's always this like warm crowd that that I just have the space to just like, okay, I have this joke that I want to like try out, or like I find even other open mics that don't pay, I'm still feeling the pressure, like, well, I have to do good because I don't know, I feel like I'm trying to impress someone, you know?
Because that's still, in a way, payment in itself, in some way. Like, having a warm audience is still, it's still something that's meaningful. It's when you're doing, doing those shows where you've commuted and it's pouring rain and the audience is terrible and you're not getting paid, where it feels like, oh, and there's, I feel like this is a man thing, this like energy of like you have to kind of grind in the mud to be and so they're like, you just have to do all of these shows, but then I feel like we are seeing this, like just seeing all of these shows where people haven't had to grind in the mud per se, and they're succeeding just as much, I think that's maybe also challenging for like comics who've been doing it for a long time, because there's this, oh, I didn't have to suffer all this time.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I guess that's fair to have that thought or frustration, but but also everyone's artistic process is different.
Totally,
you know, which I think that's like, if you're getting frustrated because that person doesn't grind as much as you.
There's also not recognizing like that some people are grinding in life more, maybe.
Yeah.
Like they're already dealing with people underestimating them in the workplace or harassing them or etc. So then when they get to do comedy, they've already kind of done the suffering, and so
they've done the work.
I feel, and that's it for women of color, where I feel like there's less of a bandwidth then to keep suffering outside of the day-to-day. Yeah.
Very, very fair. Who is your comedic inspiration before all of this, before you started in the arts or like sketch or improv? Do you have one?
My very first comedic inspiration was Calvin and Hobbes, I think.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's such a good answer.
Okay, I'm glad.
What a wild cartoon.
Yeah.
Have you watched it recently?
Yeah.
Do you still watch it?
Or I still have this like extended edition of the comics. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's wild that like young people are watching this, you know.
Wait, what are you thinking of?
Like, it's kind of
Calvin and Hobbes was just a comic strip, I think.
Oh, I thought I was thinking about some what was, you know what I'm thinking? Ren and Skippy.
Oh yeah.
Never mind.
No, that's
never
okay,
mind.
Yeah. I was like,
Calvin and Hobbes, yes. Okay. Different.
Yeah.
Different. I'm like, okay.
But Ren and Stimpy was wild. There were a lot of weird cartoons when we were kids.
Oh yes.
Like there was this cartoon called Cow and Chicken, where they would eat like pig butts on it.
I vaguely remember that. Yeah. I feel like our parents was like, well, it's animated, so it must be for kids. It's like no.
Yeah, and you're like, it's actually very dark and strange. Yeah.
So Calvin and Hobbes was your like inspiration, like, or your first taste of comedy, right?
Yeah. Because Calvin is so, he's like such an anti-establishment kind of little child.
Yeah.
And part of you's reading this like, oh, this is ridiculous, and his stuffed animal is often his voice of reason.
Yeah.
But then sometimes they would have comics where like Calvin finds a dead bird and he's processing death, or he's looking up at the stars and he's processing like, oh, I'm this small person in this huge expanse. Yeah. And there were even some comic strips were published during the Gulf War, so it was like critiquing war or like the military industrial machine kind of thing. So I remember even like being 12, being like, oh, I'm both enjoying this, but I feel like it's making me think.
Yeah.
And I read a quote eventually by the guy who drew Calvin and Hobbes, where he was like, people often have their guard down when they're reading a comic strip.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
if you have something meaningful to say, you have a tremendous opportunity.
Oh,
And I remember that always really resonated with me of, oh, when people
absolutely.
are consuming a art form that they perceive as light,
Yeah.
you do have the chance to actually say something.
Oh, absolutely. It's a
Yeah.
very powerful space. And I feel like not enough of us take advantage of that. Not that we need to take advantage of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's but what I've loved about some performances that I've seen, like, I mean, you and I can resonate with, like, when the Just for Laughs festival was around and we used to get passes, we would go to so many
Yeah.
shows. I would see Sarah at so many shows. I'm like, yeah, girl, we got
Yeah.
this. Take advantage of this
Yeah.
shit. Yeah, and some of the most, my favorite and most profound performances that I've seen is comedians that can weave together an hour set that is both hilarious and emotional at the same time,
Yeah.
because it's like storytelling and revealing, and I just, those are the ones that I like remember the most, like Mike Birbiglia, or
Yeah.
there was this other guy, I feel, Clay Holland something, and yeah, like I remember coming out of like his performance, and now I'm Adam Clay Holland or something. Anyways, I wish I remember his name. I remember coming out because his whole set was about telling the story of his sister who had ended her life.
Yeah.
And he's an amazing writer, amazing comedian, and like it's just such a roller coaster of an hour. And like I remember coming out and like sitting like outside of the old Montreal Improv, like on Saint Laurent,
Yeah.
across the street at the AMW, like in silence
Yeah.
with my cousin, just like that was the most profound thing
Yeah.
I've ever seen. So, and like comedians like that take that opportunity to be like, I have a space to like tell my story and like maybe help other people
Yeah.
at the same time. So I love that so much.
Yeah, because when you first moved to Montreal and you hear about Just for Laughs, you're like, oh, I'll go to one of the galas. But you feel kind of disappointed because.
Yeah, the galas are not my vibe. It's the small shows that we go to.
So then I started going to the smaller shows. Yeah. And for me, there was a Solomon Giorgio show where I think there was. I think we were there together, possibly.
I think so.
And there was like 12 people in the audience.
Oh, yeah.
But I know it's like illegal, but I wish I had a recording of that show.
I love Solomon Giorgio more than I love myself.
Yeah, truly. Yeah.
I've driven to Burlington, Vermont to see like his hour again because like he's so fantastic.
Truly, yeah.
He's so good.
Yeah.
And there's the little shows like that like I hate that people aren't I mean, we go to a lot of them that are filled up and a lot of people are taking advantage of it. But yeah, that show had very few people and I'm just like, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. And I guess it was like years ago when there was maybe more shows available. So I guess there was more opportunity for like some shows not to do as well as others. Where like I feel like last year we had it was still an amazing stacked like lineup, but in years previous like there was tons of shows, right? And yeah, I've never I can honestly say I've been to one gala ever, and like the rest were just the small shows at like Theater St. Catherine or the Montreal Improv or like Mainline Theater or like the Diving Bell, and just like little tiny like shows that like or like little gems, and it was just like, oh, this fits in my schedule, so I'm going there. And not really having much context of like who the people are. I just kind of knew these comedians, but and then just being blown away. That's my favorite thing about the festival.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and I'm so sad it's not
Yeah,
happening this
I know.
year.
Because I did feel, yeah, because also that year, did you see Sam J? And then there was also 10 people in the audience, but one of them was John Mulaney.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It was in Place des Arts, but the small
yeah,
room.
Exactly, yeah.
I feel like we have been at the same we had the same schedule
Totally,
most of the time.
And that's sort of that also helped me be like, oh, it's really these smaller shows where you're seeing like, I don't know, the what's like really interesting or exciting in comedy.
Yeah.
Versus those big galas where
absolutely
everybody has like 3 minutes and
a lot of those smaller shows like Sam J was practicing, you know, like she was doing a gala, so I'm sure like her doing an hour is like a practice. You see that in these smaller shows where like, oh, I have a gala tomorrow, so I'm here practicing my 10 or whatever. And yeah, like I was at that Sam J show, and John Mulaney, and there was a few other people. I think it wasn't just him, but John Mulaney was in the back. Love John Mulaney. Oh my god. You were like, I always am bummed out about, I mean, I'm sure you experienced this because you produce shows at the festival where you get these artist pass.
Yeah.
And I mean, you book all of these other artists to be on your show and they get an artist pass. And like, I always like run into some of them during that week. I'm like, oh, what shows have you seen? Oh, I haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what?
I know, because I'm like, this is really just an unreal opportunity that this pass gives you.
So I'm like always bummed that they're not like taking advantage of it, but I don't know.
I can't think of but it's just like I don't know, if somebody loved painting and then you get to just watch the like coolest artists in the world all paint and you have a free pass to see that.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and some of these people, they're going to like Montreal shows every night of the week, and because they're like performing or their friends are performing, like why aren't you going to like these amazing like pro comedians that you normally have to pay so much money to see?
But I would say that Guled, who's my partner, was the person who like helped me see that better. Yeah, because Guled is like so deeply passionate. Like he loves stand up. Yeah. He'll watch stand up for every night. He's watching specials or clips from Don't Tell Comedy or things like that. Yeah. So Guled was the person who would be like, you should go see those Lucas brothers. Like I think you'll like it. Yeah. And that where I wouldn't have maybe thought to go see as many as I did. Okay. And then when he like kind of was talking to me about all these different artists where I was like, oh my goodness, like these are just so many interesting different people with different comedy sensibilities.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I wanted to move on. I mean, we're nearing the end, which is such a bummer, but I wanted to move on to Ladyfest a little bit. Yeah. So Ladyfest is happening in September. You have been part of it for a few years now, but the last 2 years you've been spearheading it. Yeah. So how did you get involved? I know the answer to this, but how did you get involved with Ladyfest?
Yeah, I just produced, let me gather the narrative. I decided to produce that improv show called Color Outside the Lines. Mm-hmm. And so, and that was sort of a reaction to the Trump administration. Yeah. Because I was feeling like, oh, everybody who votes for somebody that I wouldn't vote for it can't just be that they're just a bad person. Yeah. So I was feeling that Calvin and Hobbes also ethos of, well, maybe if I have a comedy show where I could reach people, then that could be a way of like connecting with people that I might normally connect with. Yeah. And so I produced one of those, and Lar, who was a part of the improv community, was like, oh, we're going to do this festival called Ladyfest, and we'd love for you to be an organizing producer with us.
Amazing.
And so that was or actually, and even, sorry, I forgot, the year before that, I'd also performed as a storyteller during Ladyfest. But that felt like the big initiation into Ladyfest was because I'd produced a show that then I could get into producing with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did it evolve to you being the director of Ladyfest?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess Ladyfest, it is born out of Theatre St. Catherine.
Yeah.
And so I was producing my individual show for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But when the pandemic hit, the other producers of Ladyfest, some people were moving or moving on to other endeavors in life or focusing on Montreal Sketchfest, which is also a product of Theatre St. Catherine.
Yeah.
So they were like, if you would like to keep Ladyfest going, like we give you our blessing to carry on with that mantle.
And and was it like, did you ask them to like take it over, or did they like, I don't know, push you in that direction?
I think they more there was a conversation of like, hey Sarah, if you know, I think they were all ready to let go.
Yeah, because a lot of them like are not here in Montreal anymore, right?
Yeah, like Laura moved to Winnipeg, and Katie, who also founded the festivals in Toronto now.
Yeah. Okay. So. That's amazing. And where do you see this festival going in the next little while?
I think it's a lot of people's first festival credit, which has been really cool. So I think it's a space that people hold a lot of love for because they feel like, oh, even if sometimes it was their first time producing too, like Raquel's first time producing, I think, was with Aloe, A Tales of Gender Affirmation for Ladyfest. Yeah. So it's really been this springboard for a lot of people. So
absolutely, it has been for sure.
Yeah. So I see it both continuing to be that, but I'm also, my dream for it would be that it expands enough that it can both be a springboard for new talent, but that we would also have the framework to be able to bring in like more experienced comics. Because I think, there, as we were saying with the Just for Laughs, people don't always realize how much they can learn from other comics coming from different cities. Absolutely. So being able to bring that and be like, oh, actually there's really exciting people out there, and it'll continue to help our scene flourish to connect.
Absolutely. Well, I definitely see that happening for Ladyfest. Yeah. I'm really excited about the upcoming festival. I mean, I've been part of Ladyfest, I feel like, for many years now, before the pandemic, but then it stopped, and then But since you've been involved, or like the main person, I think I've been part of it every year, and it's always such a great collection of people. I love the lineup. I love the shows that are part of it. I love the lineup. Any show that I've been part of, I'm just like, it's such a good vibe. Like the people that come are like great. It's just like a guaranteed like good time, you know? Yeah.
And I really like this was bestowed to me, but that it does showcase, like last year we had your podcast, and that there's improv and sketch and stand-up. Yeah. Because I think you can get in a rut in any of those things. Yeah. And getting to interact or see comics from the other sectors of
absolutely. There's for some of the shows, like it was the first time working with some like sketch performers, or like just crossing paths, and like we're all in the comedy scene, but we rarely get to see each other perform, because I mean, we're going up and performing, and we don't necessarily go see another person another show because of various things. But it's just really, I love the variety of it all. It's really cool. Yeah, absolutely. Other than Ladyfest, like, what are you dreaming about doing next?
What am I dreaming about doing next? I am starting to feel this wanting to have adventures. Yeah. I think, sometimes you'll periodically be like, I'd love to see the Galapagos Islands or something one day. But then for a while I've put that so far out of my mind, because I've been like, well, I'm working, I'm producing, etc. So I do have this like desire to maybe plan towards one of those dreams.
Oh, absolutely.
I've been taking, I feel like this is a very millennial woman thing to do, but I've been taking pottery classes.
Give it to me. Yeah. Oh my God, pottery classes? Yeah. Fuck me up. I love that. Yeah. I took one pottery class. Like my friend got me something for my class for my birthday. It was like a 3-hour thing, and it was so fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it really has been, and it's been helpful in terms of like sometimes I'm trying to force a piece of clay into a shape, and it starts to be like I don't want to be that shape.
Gives you patience.
Yeah, and then it's helped me even with joke writing to be like, you know what, maybe I'm trying to force a premise onto a sketch or something like that, and that sketch doesn't want that premise, so it helps me be like, okay, well, let's see what the sketch wants. Thinking about it more as this breathing thing.
Oh my God, that's very, very valid for sure. Yeah. With like a lot of like arts and crafts, it's time consuming and there's a lot more patience than like I think a lot of us like on the day to day have to experience. Yeah. So it is like, it is nice, and also like it's good for your brain, right? Just to like be able to focus on like one thing and just like really like, just focus. With a lot of time we're just like overstimulated by so many different things where like you just have to take the time, and if you like don't move correctly or slowly enough, like you can really screw it up really badly, you know, and you don't, that's not the end result that you want. So I think we in general, we don't practice patience enough. Or like spend, you know, we're just like, so like I don't know about you, but I'm always in such a rush, and like so many things are happening, and that's what, like I used to do like a lot more art, and I miss that sometimes, where you're just like, I wish I could just focus on one thing. And sometimes like with like editing like a podcast, that's kind of my practice, in that like I have to like pay attention and like be meticulous about it. So, but pottery, I mean, not just for millennials. Everyone else should get into it. No, I watched like one like pottery reel on Instagram. I'm like, that's what I should be doing. I'm gonna get a kiln, and I'm gonna start an Etsy shop. It looks so fun.
Because there are parts of it where you just have to like you have to like hit the clay with your fist or something like that. So then you also, if you have a little bit of rage, you need to get out.
For sure. I love that so much. Well, we do have to wrap up.
Oh no, but
I know. I'm so sorry.
It went by fast.
I mean, this hour went so quickly. Thank you so much for being here. I always end the podcast with 2 final questions, and you can choose to answer both, one or none. The 2 final questions is, and I think you kind of like said it earlier a little bit, but what is the hardest thing you've ever been through, and what are you most passionate about?
Well, I think that year where I lost my dad and herniated
Absolutely. If that wasn't your hardest year, I'm sorry.
No, that was definitely one of the hardest things I've ever been through. And then I was thinking about what am I most passionate about?
Because you have a lot of things. Which is good.
I guess there were 2. There are 2 streams of thought. One is I grew up in church, and then the more I read the Bible, the more I realized I was kind of being tricked by like the institution. And that's partially why I wanted to study history too. Like, so I realized one passion of mine is not being tricked. In a way. Because then when I studied history, I felt so like, because I'd always kind of been taught that Egypt is just like this garbage country.
Oh my God. You grew up, you have that's what you were taught?
Like it's, it's like less economically developed, and people and it's because people are backwards and blah blah. So when I studied history and I understood the conditions, like I understood like colonialism, etc., and what impact that had on Egypt, I was like, it's not because Egyptians are just inherently like garbage at being successful. It was just the odds were so stacked against us.
Absolutely.
And so even when I'm teaching history, like my 10th graders history book has like maybe 2 sentences about the Oka crisis. Which
maybe not the best.
But then I was like, now I get to stop them from being tricked too.
You get to like
I got to give them the full story.
You could add to the narrative, change like the trend of like us like younger people being like not as educated about certain things. And like what I can go on a tangent about history, but like when I was learning history, and like it was only when I was like in university or cégep when I like took an elective, like a history elective, that I like history is impacted by the person that is telling it. And like when you're learning it, when you're like a younger person, you don't realize that. You're just like, these are the facts, this is what happened. But like it's there's so many different factors that go into like what you're reading or what you're being told. Even with like, even the teacher has a bias, you know, where like you don't realize that. Like I didn't realize that till like way like later than I should have. Thank God, like I learned it like when I was in my 20s or whatever in university. And it's so important to know that. And like I'm glad that you are, you know, a high school history teacher changing this. Yeah. And hopefully there's other teachers like you out there. I know that there's other teachers like you
for sure
there, but that's good. So you have a passion about not being tricked and teaching people not to be tricked.
Exactly.
I love that.
I guess the other thing is when I was a kid and I'd meet adults who seemed soulless, I was like, I never want to be that.
Yes.
So I think
I'm passionate about having a soul.
Yeah. Well, I guess the like which comedy I think helps me with is like always having like play or whimsy or joy in my life. So I love things like Star Wars, like I could talk about, but part of that is just this extension of wanting to make sure that I always have that like wonder or play or whimsy in my life.
Live with a lot of wonderment. And
so
play.
I feel like all of my passions, if I was going to distill them into two categories.
You're living it. You're a very passionate person. I love that. I love that so much. Well, thank you so much for being here.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Delightful. Where can people find you online?
The best place is through They Go Low, We Go Laugh. On Instagram and Facebook.
Awesome. And thank you to the listeners. You know where to find me, housestonepodcast.com. Thank you to Many Vids for this beautiful studio. Like, subscribe, do all of those things. Follow Sarah Malika. And all right, thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.